you. Carrie.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I actually have a air gap network one day for the judge meeting.
That's okay.
Oh, I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Starting to stir. Why do we have like a silver? Just to piss you off.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call our Tuesday, May 27th council meeting to order. If you would, please join us for a prayer and the pledge.
Please bow your heads with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the many blessings you've given us. Lord, we thank you for this beautiful community of Aurora that we're each so blessed to serve. Lord, we just ask that you be with the council members tonight and that with the presenters tonight, that you give the words and wisdom that you would have each person to have. Lord, we just ask that you give the council the wisdom and knowledge you would have them to have to make the decisions that you lay out before them. Lord, we just thank you for the Memorial Weekend that we just came through and just ask that you help each of us to keep in mind the heroes and the ones who've given the greatest sacrifice so that we can have the freedom that we have, and help us to remember that as we walk through each day throughout the year, not just the weekend that we observe it. Lord, just be with us, lead us and guide us, forgive us where we fail you. And we say all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Kennedy,
Here.
Chairman Pro Tem Lewis,
Here.
Councilwoman Uplinger,
Present.
Councilwoman Pettit, here, Councilman Blades,
Here.
you have a quorum.
All right, start off with public comment. A citizen desiring to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so at this time. Each citizen is limited to 3 minutes, and the council will not take action or discuss items at this time. Discussion should be limited to matters of city business, and public comment is not permitted in regard to personnel matters or on pending legal matters. Items introduced under public comment may become agenda items at a later date. Bob, is that Pattinson? Patterson. If you would come up to the podium for us,
Sure.
then.
Not a citizen, but a Mercy employee. So we are have provided EMS service to the community for decades, as you guys are probably well aware. We are also the provider for the Mount Vernon Ambulance District, so we are the contracted provider for them. Those two operations have worked seamlessly for a long period of time. We have lately have been discussing with the ambulance district about one initiative was to convert from property tax to sales tax. You may be aware that was successful. And then the second initiative they are it was approved today. It's at the county commissioners, was an expansion proposal. The proposal is to expand the existing district to the rest of the areas of Lawrence County which are not part of an ambulance district. So right now you just have Barry Lawrence, which has a small part of the area, and then you have a large part that is not part of an ambulance district, meaning there is no subsidy for operations. We have struggled, Mercy has struggled to continue service in Aurora due to a variety of factors. Labor costs have expanded tremendously, cost of equipment, power equipment, power loads, power stretchers, those kind of things. We've struggled to keep pace with capital needs for the service. So we asked the ambulance district in Mount Vernon to consider that. They've graciously agreed to do so. They're actually changing their name to the Lawrence County Ambulance District in anticipation of that possibility. And we just wanted to bring the council up to speed on what was happening there and answer any questions you might have either us or the district as this initiative goes forward. We'll be out in the community speaking to many groups as those opportunities present. Also wanted to introduce Blake Fox, who's our local field supervisor for the Aurora operation. He also interacts with our Mount Vernon team. You've got other supervisors here, but Blake and I are with you this evening. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. It's just become much more expensive to operate EMS programs and provide the care at the level that we do to the community without some level of subsidy or support. We've in fact lost money each and every year in the operation of the ambulance service here. So I'm happy to answer any quick questions you may have, but just wanted to bring that information to you as a council so that you'd be aware that you may start getting some questions in the community about that.
So this would be not unlike CCAD or TCAD, similar to what they did, where the county coverage is under one roof, essentially.
Very similar, sir, but it would bring some subsidy and support to the areas that haven't had that previously. So it would allow for future growth. We see the need for some additional stations, potentially more ambulances in the community, those kind of things.
And so run me by the funding again, so the voters understand how is this going to fund itself to expand, or is that already been handled?
So the district was previously property tax. They had an initiative on the ballot recently to convert to sales tax,
Okay.
meaning that anyone in the county driving through the community that pays sales tax would support. They are a large consumer of EMS services, folks who travel through the community. So we thought it was the right thing to do. Most ambulance districts in the state have either moved to that model or are moving to it. Currently, Taney County included, Christian County's included, they've gone to sales tax. And then the recently established Stone County Ambulance District will go directly to sales tax, which we think is a more fair approach.
Okay, all right, thank you.
What will change for citizens of Aurora? Will we still have location-wise, response times? What can you speak to that?
So no immediate changes. We believe probably most of the equipment and building and that kind of thing would go to the district for their operation. And then we will work with the district once that funding starts to happen to identify where future stations should be placed. I think in the future you'll see more coverage, stations where we can reduce response time to other parts of the community.
And so who's in charge of making those decisions and deciding where those hubs or bases, whatever they're called, will be, and who gets the level of coverage that our citizens think that we need?
So if the expansion's approved, the whole new district would be redistricted. I'm using that word carefully, but yeah, there'd be new districts within the overall district, and so those board members would be the ones that make that decision.
Board members of
The ambulance district.
Okay.
And typically that's in collaboration with Mercy, since we have the statistics and the data about where our calls have been previously, and we make recommendations to the board.
Got ya. Okay.
Just for clarity, this is not in any conjunction with the emergency management, like the 911 center that is in Mount Vernon. There's no correlation with
No
that.
connection. No,
Okay.
ma'am. We work closely with our 911 partners, though, and so in that regard, I mean, there's the funding piece is not connected, but we do work closely with the 911 partners.
Okay, but no board members.
No board members.
Okay.
This is a standalone board.
All right, thank you.
And as I said, those current board members, some of them may change because that'll get redistricted if it's approved, so,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Good questions. We'll have to write these down, so we'll be ready for the next meeting.
If we have nothing further.
Thank you.
All right, thanks,
So
sir.
please reach out if you have questions. We just wanted to bring you up to speed, as that was just approved this morning, and sure that you'll hear
Great.
more. We'll be out talking to other groups in the community. I'm happy to come back if you'd like us to.
All right, appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
All right, moving on to council forum. Mr. Pro Tem.
Nothing from me event-wise. I was out of town, so pretty status quo. I would like to. I know it's on our radar. It's about scheduling, a strategic planning session. So I just want a friendly reminder that I would like to do that sooner than later. But that's it for me.
All right. Somebody take it.
Josh? I was able to attend the flag planting ceremony that we do at Maple Park every year, and so just want to thank everybody who made it out to that and got that done. It was, I think, pretty quick record time on there that enough people were volunteering. So
I was there too at the Veterans Flag, and it was very amazing because they ran out of flags for all the volunteers, so you're right. Chamber banquet, it was wonderful. I went to Lobbers with Carrie and Kami. That was really amazing. Not to spend all our money, but if you ever get a chance to go to that, it was really, really beneficial. Our famous Nate there was a very good presenter. And I went to Winston's soft opening. They're getting their feet wet, but the food was delish.
That's great. The only thing I did is I helped with the coordination of the electronic recycling event here in Aurora that was in collaboration with First Independence annual confidential paper drive, and very successful standing out in the rain, but we filled the truck. We didn't think we were going to, but we filled the truck. So we'll have statistics when Natalie gets back from vacation, so.
All right, I had the downtown art walk / little kickoff of a veterans event at City Hall grounds out here that was really good history, a good presentation. I didn't catch his name, and he took off before I could catch him, but that was a great speech he had together. Of course, the art walk after that. Chamber banquet. Thanks for a wonderful evening, Shannon. That was fun. I get to do what I like to do, which is just show up and eat, and I didn't have to organize or anything. I think you had to be involved in that. So, of course, showed up for the recycling event. Stood out in the rain for a little while. Had everybody was really upbeat. I mean, even with the weather, how can you not? 3 days straight of rain. You just gotta either warm up to it or not. But a lot more people than I thought came out, and like she said, filled the truck. We had a park board meeting, so a couple items on park board. We have 2 applicants on the list tonight. One of them actually expressed interest in multiple boards, but I think he has some unique experience and input that will help the park board. Plus, they're probably, I think, at the highest struggle for quorum right now. So they had a couple resign, one differing interests, one too busy, the other actually moved away. So they've got 3 positions open. However, as Carrie had mentioned the last time, the actual incorporation or the documents around the park board shows a membership of 6, which is odd to me. Allows for a tie. Not really sure why it's that way, because we were talking about adding the 6, or do we talk about going to 5 or 7? I think it would benefit them, my personal opinion, to find a group of 5 solid people so they're not fighting quorum so much. But I think Carrie's going to look into that and figure out what the reasoning is behind it, because that seems odd enough that there was a reason. So I want to make sure we're not doing something weird there. But that could be coming, a change to that could be coming as a result of that. Other than that, they're preparing for the mud run on the morning of Light the Night, so big event out there, and then the touch truck event is coming up. With that, I am finally at the end of my list. So moving on to, actually I misspoke earlier. I think I said consent agenda. That was council forum. This is consent agenda. It'd be the approval of minutes for City Council regular session, May 13th, 2025, and May 2025 appropriations.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion and second, please vote.
Motion passed.
Thank you. All right. No old business, correct? Yep. Moving on to new business. 8.1, request for adjustment utility billing.
Council, you'll see in the agenda item with this that we've included the city code surrounding the utility billing and how we arrive at the calculations. I've asked Courtney to be here this evening, the city collector, to speak to this a little bit. So this may be the first one of these that you've seen come before you, and it's based on a formal request. You'll see there's an email in your agenda from the citizen that made the formal request for a review of his utility billing and for it to be adjusted. I'm going to have Courtney speak to the specifics of that in terms of the actual numbers and kind of visit with you about that. But based on that code and the request from the citizen, that's why it comes before you in this fashion this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I believe you guys have the usage report. The customer's usage, which comes from Liberty, was $25,000 for the month of December, which if you can look at their actual usage is a little bit higher in that time period than normal. So with it being that case, that's what he was concerned with, was the $25,000. If you guys were to do an adjustment, my recommendation would be the $9,000, which was billed last year. That was a part of his average. If we change that $25,000 to $9,000, that would put him at what he paid last year, based off of 4,667 gallons.
I did not see what his bill is, because I did the math on what I felt like should be fair, but I didn't see what his bill was running.
I think it was in the 90s, if memory serves me
Was it
right.
in the packet? I sure didn't see it.
I don't know if it was actually in the packet. I think I printed the usage amount and not the actual front page of his bill. So his bill, including sewer and trash, is 107.10. Previously, it was 63.10.
Okay, how much of that is trash? Remind me.
$14.95. So, breakdown, sorry. $92.15 would be what he is being billed at right now monthly for sewer.
Sewer.
His average is 10,000 gallons at this time, where last year it was 4,667.
So is December the month with 25,000 the only month that's in dispute and question?
Yes, from him, yes.
Because I took all the usage, took out every summer months, June, July, and August, and there's still months of 17,000, 13,000, which don't add up to, you know, an average of 3,000 like the email states.
Mm-hmm.
There's no indication from Liberty of any leak. So my concern is it does seem like a high spike, right? But it's also not out of question of usage of past months that aren't disputed.
I will say in the month of September, he used 48,000 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
He said he had a leak, he had a plumber, he paid thousands of dollars to come fix. I did ask Liberty. They did not have a receipt of that, but he may not have turned one in.
Yeah.
Typically, customers will bring us receipts whenever it's affecting their sewer, not their water.
Yeah, I omitted that as well. These are just non-summer months that
Okay.
aren't in dispute, you know, 17,000, 13,000, 9,000. My concern with adjusting a bill if there's not been an adjustment from Liberty is that how do we know, and why would Liberty not have an adjustment had there been a leak or a mistake? And so with there being unreliability with Liberty, I would hate to have this room fill up with people who are seeking adjustments who don't believe, without any proof or adjustment from Liberty, that their bill is incorrect, right? I think we open ourselves up to go down a rabbit hole of how do you know whether there was a leak or not, or a mistake by Liberty or not, and I'm not sure I want to get in the position of being judge and jury to Liberty's bill. And I feel like the onus should be on them to correct a bill if it's incorrect, not on us to discount a charge that's been calculated based on their bill. That's kind of where I'm landing, but.
We did reach out to Liberty. Their position was,
The first time I reached out was in February, because I would have gotten the usage around that time, and the response was, could have been a leak that was fixed, because he didn't have a receipt or anything to provide to them. I reached out again in April whenever I realized that his usage was going to be higher, and they stated no adjustment on this. He called in April but did not send anything to get an adjustment.
good.
And they have also since indicated that they typically will not adjust anything older than 3 months.
Yeah, so they'll do an adjustment for 3 months. So
That's brings up another ball of wax, but that means if you had a leak early in your averaging period, by the time you found out, they'll no longer adjust. Just so everybody's aware, because that's a 3-month period. So I don't disagree on that point. I think if you take the two cases here, whether it's either a data error or it was a leak that was fixed, in either of those cases, I think you do adjust, would be our process, or by policy, because they would have submitted the paperwork, but we're saying he's just not submitting it or not stating one way or the other.
right. I mean, honestly, it could be a leaky toilet. The handle got stuck or something like that. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Does
There's
this
no,
individual indicate why maybe he couldn't be present to explain his side of the story this evening?
no.
I assume he knew this was on the agenda to be discussed?
He knew it was going to be on an agenda. He thought it was going to be on the last one, but
You followed up to confirm that date and got a voicemail though, right?
yes, I did get a voicemail.
Okay.
He never called back.
Okay.
And for us all, when is Liberty coming? Aren't they coming to the rec center soon?
June 10th.
Okay.
Yeah, I have trouble landing at what number we should be looking at or for. Should it be an average of usage? Should it be a high mark in the last 2 years? I don't know.
And we don't really have any guidance in our policy to dictate that either.
I don't have any confidence in Liberty's bill as a customer myself, but I think that opens us up to having literally every citizen line up asking for an adjustment. If we're just going off of, I don't believe it's correct.
Yeah. Previously, I guess I would have relied on, like I said, the idea that in either of those cases, we would have defaulted to if they provided receipts, but that's unfortunate. So I see your point, and I think it's valid. I think we do end up with other situations. You'd mentioned that we hadn't had one recently. Do you remember the last time anything like this has occurred where there's a dispute
That's
and
come
Liberty
before-
and Liberty was in disagreement with the customer?
I mean, honestly, it happens frequently.
What I'm getting at is, are they usually willing to make a statement, whereas here they're just kind of backing off and going, "This is what we saw, and we're not really."
With a receipt, with a letter, if somebody has reason of why there could have been adjustment, even if they write a letter stating why they think they could have, they can tell me, typically this customer uses 9,000 gallons around this time of the month, or we're going to do an adjustment for this amount.
Okay.
So,
But the
yes,
customer-
if they have some sort of
The customer has to take that-
explanation.
Yeah, the customer has to take that initiative with
Yes.
Liberty to do that, right? The letter, yeah.
Or then they can submit it to us and we submit it to Liberty on their behalf, right?
Right. Typically,
So we do
they'll
go
bring it
that
to us, and then I'll send it to them.
And just for posterity, was that explained to him as well?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Do we know why that wasn't done? Was there any other circumstances or explanation given of why maybe with some of this wasn't completed on the customer's end?
He called Liberty, but he told them that he didn't know why.
Yeah.
He believes they're at fault.
Yeah, and it very well may be, right?
But the meter reading doesn't lie. I mean, our meter read's a meter read.
You would be able to see it if it rolled backwards. There was no rollover in the meter. The meter continues to go forward,
Right.
which indicates that it's not an accurate read.
Okay. At what point did he reach out to, when did we learn of this? What month did we learn?
It would have been in January that it would have came across the report, because the report that shows in January shows his usage in December. And then whenever the averaging period takes place, I print a report in April to start figuring the averages up, and I questioned it again right before the bills went out.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
You're saying that whenever you get the report, so you look at thousands of reports and see which ones are out of a line?
I look at one report and I
Uh-huh.
sort it, and I go from highest read to lowest read, and I'll go all the way from the highest read and go all the way down until I get to like 10,000 gallons.
Uh-huh.
And then I don't look at the 10,000. I look at anything higher and I question them. I question about 100 accounts in the averaging period a month.
Okay, so when you say you question, then you contact Liberty?
I contact Liberty and ask if it's a correct read, and if they did use that much, or if there was an adjustment for some reason that I did not get.
Okay. And you did all that in December,
in January.
January for the December read of 13,000.
15. The 13,000 was for November.
Okay,
That wouldn't have taken effect of his, it wouldn't have taken a part of his averaging.
okay. I gotcha.
Yeah.
I averaged the wrong ones.
So it sounds like from the city's responsibility, we did our due diligence, we talked to Liberty. This is still a dispute between the customer and Liberty at this point, because one way or another, they've got to get either some data or some resolution with them to provide the numbers that he believes he should have. Okay,
So
all right, so this will,
I would say that we really can't move forward with anything until Liberty makes an adjustment.
Or we have some additional information
Right.
from the customer.
Okay.
Yeah.
so I guess we have two options here. We can table, reach out to the customer, try to get some resolution between them, or we can make a motion in the affirmative and decline, and they can bring it back, provided they find some better information from Liberty.
Well, I'd like to give him a chance to prove his story there. I don't,
So I
So-
think it might be more customer friendly to table it
Yeah,
for further information.
So I'll make a motion that we table 8.1 request for adjustment utility billing until further information is obtained by the customer, and possible discussion with Liberty.
Second,
all right,
A date certain on that, so it didn't just die.
Yeah, by,
gosh, after their meeting for sure, so.
give them the second meeting in June,
yeah,
which would be,
what's the 24th
Mhm.
okay.
to June 24th, yeah.
so tabled until June 24th to give the customer time to work with Liberty. And that was a motion, so.
Is table the right word after a big lump?
Yeah, it's fine.
What do you want me to
As long as you
use?
put a date certain, you're fine.
What's the proper?
Well, table means it dies at the end of the meeting if you just table without a date certain. But with a date certain, you're fine.
So what is the alternative term in
I mean, table with a date certain or
Okay.
continue to another meeting.
continued? Okay, all right.
Do you have a motion?
So we have a motion and a second?
We do not have a second.
I
Teresa was a
second it.
second.
Oh, sorry. Motion and second, please vote.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Court.
Thank you.
Sorry, friends.
That's okay.
All right, 8.2, resolution number 2025-2044, Park Board appointment, Jesse Rathman. And these two, the following two, their applications are included, of course, and both will be on the Park Board.
I'll make a motion to approve, get to the, Jesse Rathburn, for a park board appointment.
Second.
Motion and second, please vote.
Motion passed.
I'll make a motion, we accept resolution 2025-2045, Park Board appointment for Melody McKinley.
Second. Motion and second, please vote.
Motion passed.
All right, 8.4, resolution number 2025-2047, Aurora R8 School District Board Member Appointment. So I think the last time we were gonna talk to Yoakum to see what the board's feeling on that was. Have we had that conversation yet?
No, I apologize. I thought you were gonna do that.
I thought I was waiting on you, so we
I'm
both
sorry.
were waiting on each other. Okay,
I apologize.
so we probably need to continue that one to the first
Okay.
June meeting, if that works for.
I think the actual term is postponed.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll pick one, we'll get one
It's
eventually.
not that formal, as long as you guys know what you're talking about.
So we will postpone that discussion until
June 10th.
June 10th.
And I'm having the conversation with him?
No, I'll go ahead. I just thought I was waiting on you, so
Okay.
I'll talk with him.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. We'll get there eventually. All right. So I make a motion to postpone resolution number 2025-2047, Aurora Heights School District Board Member appointment to June 10th.
Second.
Motion and second, please vote.
Motion passed.
Thank you. 8.5, fiscal year 2024 annual audit presentation and discussion.
I think that's me.
It is.
Well, good evening.
Evening.
Well, I'm Matt Wallace, shareholder with KPM CPAs in Springfield, Missouri. And I'll be presenting your 2024 financial statement audit results. I think each of you got a big report to go through. So if you want to follow along, I'll start on page 4. As I get rolling, I start moving pretty quick. But don't hesitate. If you have any questions, just let me know, and we can stop and discuss any questions that y'all have. So on page 4, we have the independent auditor's report. So the reason y'all hire us is for us to issue an opinion as to whether your financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And really that information is contained in these first 3 paragraphs. You'll see that the city does receive a qualified and an unmodified opinion. So there's one qualification to your opinion, and this has been an ongoing qualification. It's related to the Aurora Community Hospital. That fixed asset's not on the city's, in the city's financial statements because there's no accurate tracking as to what that asset value is. So pushing that one asset aside, if you go down to that 3rd paragraph, the city really received an unmodified opinion on all other aspects of the financial statements. That's the business type activities, your governmental activities, each major fund, and your aggregate remaining fund as well. So an unmodified opinion is the best opinion that you can receive. Definitely want to congratulate the city on that. And I also like to point out, when we discuss that unmodified opinion, another way to look at that is that there's reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. And then I just want to go through the reporting package. Next, we'll go to page 9. So as you go through this in your free time, just want to point out some good sections to review. So on page 9, we have the management's discussion and analysis section of the audit report. I just like to say this is a great place to go to if you just want a brief overview of where the city was in 2024. There's a nice section of economic factors and discussion of 2025 figures completed by the city manager in there as well. Comparative information so you can review 2024 versus 2023. So I always like to say, just if you want a kind of a more brief overview, that management discussion and analysis section is a great place to go. Next, we'll hit on some of the numbers. So we'll go to page 20. So on page 20, we have the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your governmental funds, basically the income statement for your governmental funds. Got a lot of numbers on this page, so I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. Like I said, if you have any questions as we go through it, just let me know. But we'll start with that very first column, the general fund on page 20. So about halfway down, you'll see total revenues for the general fund are right at $4.5 million. That was up about $375,000 from the prior year. Just wanted to point out a couple of items within all that group of revenues that affected that change. About halfway down in those revenues, you'll see that federal and state grants of about $765,000. That grant funding, the majority of that was the city's identification of ARPA expenditures. So you received the ARPA funding over a 2-year period. Now we've identified all those expenditures for financial statement purposes. It means that you've earned that revenue, so now we can show it as revenue. We don't have it restricted anymore. We don't have to worry about ARPA going forward. Continuing down there, fines and forfeitures of about $42,000. That went down about $32,000 from the prior year. And right below that, interest income of about $127,000. That was up about $60,000 from the prior year, so good investment returns there. Continuing down, total expenditures near the bottom for general fund was right at $4.5 million. That was down about $200,000 from the prior year. Again, a couple of lines of note there. That second line in your expenditures, the police and court, that was up about $250,000 from the prior year. The bulk of that increase was related to wages, and there also was software upgrades in 2024 as well. Another line to point out is that community development line of about $360,000. That was down about $325,000 from the prior year. So in fiscal year 2023, that's where all those demolitions for the city, that's where those expenses were in fiscal year 2023. So that left an excess of revenues over expenditures, or basically your operating income in the general fund of about $55,000. Then you can see below that all of your non-operating items, leaving an overall net change in fund balance for the general fund at right at $620,000, and an ending fund balance in the general fund of about $2.1 million. For the general fund, I also always like to point out, since we're not going over the balance sheet, I always like to look at your unrestricted cash balances compared to your operating expenses for the year. So I did that calculation to kind of see what your operating reserves are. I calculated that at right at 37% for the general fund. We always recommend at least 3 months, so you have a pretty healthy general fund reserve there as well. Just hit a few of the highlights in the other columns. That second column, transportation fund, total revenues were right at $1.4 million. That was down about $670,000 from the prior year. The bulk of that decrease was a lot of grant funding that was received in 2023. That grant funding didn't occur in fiscal year 2024. And with that, you'll see total expenditures of $1.4 million. Those were down about $600,000. With the grant funding in 2023, there were expenses associated with that in fiscal year 2023 that didn't occur again in 2024. And for the transportation fund, that left a net change in fund balance of about $136,000 and a total fund balance for the transportation fund of right at $735,000. Third column, your park stormwater fund, total revenues were right at $980,000. That was up about $120,000. The bulk of that increase is in that federal and state grant, that $126,000. So as we recognize the income for ARPA and found the related expenditures, there were some of those expenditures that were in the general fund, the transportation fund, I believe, and also the park stormwater fund. So that's another section that was recognizing that ARPA funding for the fiscal year 2024. Total expenditures in the park stormwater fund were right at $634,000. That was up about $110,000 from the prior year. The bulk of that increase was just related to wages within that fund and also the trail project that had started. There's some engineering costs associated with that. And that left a net change in the park stormwater fund of almost $300,000 and an ending fund balance of right at $609,000 for the year. Next column is the community hospital fund. Of course, that just holds, the majority of that is just the annual rent that's paid to that fund. Recreation fund, wanted to point that out. Near the bottom there, you'll see total expenditures are right at $9.7 million. The capital outlay line there of $9.1 million. Of course, that's the rec center. That's an ongoing project at December 31st. I did point out that there was still about my handwriting. I think it's 2.3 million in project funding at the end of fiscal year 24. So the rec center was getting close to being completed, but not quite there. And I also wanted to point out right below that the debt service, interest, and fees, that was the first debt payment for the 2023 COP that's paying for the recreation fund. So you'll see the interest and fees related to that, which would be new for fiscal year 2024. And overall, you'll see a net change in that rec fund of about a $9 million decrease. But of course, that's the funding was generated from that 2023 COP that's being paid for the project. And that left a fund balance there right at $1.9 million. The next column is just all the remaining funds that you all have. And then the final column, again, that's just your total governmental funds. See there at the very bottom there, the net change in all of your governmental funds was a decrease of about $7.8 million. But of course, taking in the rec center into account, it really was about a $1.2 million increase in your governmental funds when you take out just the cost of the rec center that you all had. And that left an overall ending fund balance for all of your governmental funds at right at $8.9 million. Next, go to page 23. So on page 23, we have the same report, the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for your enterprise fund, so for your sewer fund and your sanitation fund. Again, I'm just going to hit the highlights here. The sewer fund, the first column, you'll see total operating revenues are right at $2 million. That was up about $240,000 from the prior year. Total operating expenses ended about almost $1.1 million. That was up about $100,000 from the prior year. There really wasn't one specific line that stood out. It was just kind of a general increase across each of those expense line items. I did want to point out below that, you'll see in your non-operating revenues and expenses, $102,000 in bond issuance costs. That's related to the 2024 revenue bond that the city entered into. There were no project costs yet for that in fiscal year 2024. We were just getting the project started at that point. And that left an overall change in net position for the sewer fund at right at $689,000. And I also wanted to point out below that, you'll see something kind of unique this year. As we look at the net position, there's that change in accounting principle, GASB Statement 101. That's related to compensated absences. There's a new standard that requires you, before you just showed any vacation liability that was going to be paid out upon termination. Now the requirement's just to show any earned PTO, vacation, sick leave, all of that has to be shown on the balance, on the income statement and balance sheet now. So that's just a accounting standard change. And there you'll see the total net position for the sewer fund was right at $11.2 million. Second column there, the sanitation fund, fiscal year 2024 was the first full year of operation of this fund. So there's really not much to compare it to, but you can see near the bottom there, the total change in net position or net income for the sanitation fund is right at $23,000. And there's an overall net position in the sanitation fund of about $42,000. Next, we want to go to page 26. So we made it through all the numbers, and on page 26, we have the first page of the notes to the financial statements. I always like to point out this is part of the audit process. So as you see the next probably 15, 20 pages of the notes to the financial statements, that was part of the audit. We went through all of those numbers as well. I just like to say the notes always give great context to the numbers that we just went through. So if you're looking at any specific line item, whether it be cash, debt, your investments, there's gonna be a related note to that that's gonna give you more context, more information on that. There weren't any new notes necessarily, but I was just gonna point a couple out as we go through it. So we can go to page 36. So at the top of page 36, we have the end of note 8, which is your long-term debt note for your sewer fund. And I just wanted to point that out. We discussed that when we were going through the income statement, but this note's gonna show that Series 2024 revenue bond that the city entered into in fiscal year 2024. It's kind of a unique bond because it's one of those that's kind of considered pay-as-you-go. So you actually aren't obligated to the full. I believe you guys issued it for roughly $4.7 million. It's not obligated in the financial statements until you actually draw down the funds for the corresponding costs associated with that. So over the next year or two, as that project continues and it finishes, we'll actually see the balance of that grow on the balance sheet, and then of course you'll start paying that off through debt payments. So right now, at the end of fiscal year 2024, you'll see that debt issuance is only showing $102,000 being payable. And while we're here on note 9, I also wanted to point out, so note 9 is your capital assets. We talked about kind of the two big projects. You got the sewer project coming up in fiscal year 25 and beyond, but we had the rec center going on in fiscal year 2024. So I wanted to point out that second line there, construction in progress on note 9. You'll see there was an addition of about almost $10.2 million. That's where we're seeing the rec center. Right now it's in construction in progress. You guys have a total of almost $11.2 million. It's not just the rec center, but that's the bulk of it. And then once that's completed, probably now in fiscal year 2025, that will then go down into building and improvements and then start getting depreciated in 2025 and beyond. Let's see, I wanted to go to page 45 as well.
Sir?
Yeah.
Before we go to 45, I had a question on page 41 for
Yeah.
loggers.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like we're, $500,000 in the positive there for assets. My question was, is that typical? Is that good? Is there too much that we can kind of be ahead of, that we're kind of not taking that money, investing, getting a return on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, because it's a unique item that's on the balance sheet. This has only been in place for, well, show my age now. It's probably been 7 or 8 years. But this really isn't a liability or an asset in this case that you can do much with, because you guys are, in loggers. Loggers is basically going to tell you what you have to contribute as a city and as employees. So this is their overall pension plan that loggers has. Then they calculate the portion of all the funding that they have and what you all kind of are either owe or have the asset of. So that's all you're seeing here. It's an actuarial calculated number. So we don't even come up with that number. It's loggers has an actuarian, and then they get audited on that number, and then they show what portion of that you all are kind of that's available to you all. But when I say available, it's not like you guys could say, oh well, we have $500,000 here. Let's pull this out in some fashion. That's not something that you all do. Really, all it's doing is that loggers down the road, if you continued on a trend to have a larger and larger asset, they may change your contribution rate. You may have a lower contribution rate. But with that, if you go to, I think the very next page. So on page 42, just to kind of give you an idea, you'll see that $523,000 number again there on that, underneath that column, that's 7%.
Yep.
So not to get into too much detail, but when they calculate that, they calculate investment returns on theirs of about 7%. And you'll see, kind of depending on the market, it's going to swing it one way or the other. So they're required in here. So if they were only to get a 6% return, it actually changes your $500,000 asset into a almost $2 million liability. Okay. And if you looked at reports probably over the past 3 or 5 years, you'd kind of see that swing on your balance sheet. It'll go up and down basically how the market's doing.
Okay.
So long story short, there's really not much you all can do with it. It's really just a guide to kind of see where your contribution rates are and where they may go. But there's really not much you all can do with it, and it's a calculated number.
Okay,
Does that
great.
give you kind of a
Perfect.
general idea?
Yep, thank you.
All right, on page 45, I just wanted to point out at the top there, note 15. This is not a new note, but it's the Aurora Community Hospital note. This is the note that kind of discusses that qualified opinion and just that asset and the relationship that you all have related to the community hospital. And I also wanted to point out there, note 17 at the bottom, restatement of beginning balances. That's related to the GASB Standard 101 that we saw briefly and on the sewer fund income statement. There you can see the total effect to the city. Compensated absences for your governmental activities for all in total, that went up about $191,000. And then of course we saw the sewer fund change about $15,000. And again, that's related to prior to the standard that we have now. We just looked at, okay, if the city ceased to operate today, what dollar amount would they have to pay out? Now, under the new standard, it says, hey, what has everyone earned related to pay time off? That's what we're gonna show as a liability. So that's all we're seeing there. And that is all I had, I think, within the actual audit report. I did want to go over the separate letter that I gave you all. I should have, I think, a number 1 about halfway down the page. So in addition to auditing your financial statements and issuing an opinion on that, any recommendations that we have when we during the audit process, we'd like to bring up to management as well. That's what we have in this letter. So I'll just go through some of these recommendations. You'll see number 1 there about halfway down the page is related to budgetary compliance. I think we had a similar recommendation to this last year. But if you look at your budgets, you'll see both in the general fund, transportation fund, and in the recreation fund, the actual expenditures for the year exceeded the budgeted expenditures. So our recommendation is during that budgeting process, when you're going near the end of the year, when you're going through amending your budget, just make sure that you do amend your budget to reflect those additional costs that you have, the actual costs that you have. Your budgeted expenditures always should equal or exceed those expenditures. Item 2, again, the Aurora Community Hospital. This isn't new. This is the same as last year, but this is just a discussion of the city attempting to go through that process of valuing that asset. If we can get the asset value, I'll take a look at the calculations. We'll see what we have. Then we can put that in the financial statements and get rid of that qualification altogether. On the next page, item 3, this is not unique to the city of Aurora. This is a recommendation we have for pretty much all of our governments. There's so many continuing trends and concerns related to cybersecurity. We just feel like it's always important for the city to understand that the requirements and keep updated with different processes related to that. I will say I think there's going to be a new accounting standard down the road that's going to actually make this kind of a note to the financial statements, just because this is an ongoing concern for all governments. And then item 4, new pronouncements that we have coming up in fiscal year 25 and 26. You can read through those. There may be some slight changes to some notes that we have, which we'll go over in future years, and of course I'll discuss as we come out and do the audit. But these 2 new standards don't really have any effect on your financial statement numbers or anything like that. So it shouldn't have a large impact for you all. I think that's pretty much all I have. Of course, I want to thank you all for allowing me to present. I want to thank the city manager, of course, finance, the team. They're great to work with. Always get us all the information that we need, and really transparent as well. They give us full access to all the information. So I think it's been a really great working relationship, and we appreciate that. And I can answer any questions y'all have at this time.
Do I have any questions?
No, I don't.
I believe I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
I know it's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
Of course, they have my contact information. If you guys are reading through it, if you have any questions, I'm always available for any questions that y'all have.
A question I have, I guess, really for Carrie is this something that we could go ahead and scan in and have it available on the city website? Because I know some people have asked about, the audit with the city and all this, so that, we could safely say, go check the city website, it's there.
Sure.
Does anybody else have any
No,
problems
this is a
with
great
that?
point.
I think we're required to.
Yeah,
Good.
we typically post it after we get the final draft, so we'll do that.
Okay,
Tonight is the final draft coming before us, so we'll get it posted now.
okay.
Just echo, great job to staff. It's awesome to hear those comments from our auditor, so
Yeah.
thank you all.
All
Thank you.
right,
Thank you. All right. 8.6, special event application, Children's Miracle Network Craft Fair.
Good evening, council. I brought this to you, I believe, the last council meeting and went over this, but they have come back with They are not, Crystal had reached out to them to let them know that, hey, you know, it had passed and stuff like that. Well, when it come to the point of them wanting to pay the $25 for the permit fee, they asked if we could take it back to you guys to have it, for you guys to waive the $25 fee. They are not requiring any staffing at all from the city. Their police or fire or anything, it's all, they're doing it all in-house and taking care of those things. But they are wanting to know if you guys would waive the fee for the permit of $25.
Again, I may have missed all this in the packet, and I pulled up the application. It doesn't really say what they're doing, though.
Right, I know it's for the Children's Miracle Network, and I
Right.
know they're doing some kind of craft fair, but you're correct, she did not fill out what description wise of what this all gonna entail, besides they were not gonna need any kind of city staffing at all for the project.
In years past, so I believe last year we had a very similar event. I think they're gonna do a kind of a repeat event this year. But they had asked for some police and fire to be present last year, for a similar event. And we did have fire and police on, you know, there, talking to kids and that kind of thing. So I think it's an event for kids, and it's geared toward a craft fair this year. And so we had said, well, it's private property, they're not asking for anything from us, so doesn't need to go to council. And that's when they said, well, we've always had the fee waived in the past when we do this same event. So that's basically, they're not asking for anything from us, but because it's an event for a good cause, I think they're asking for the waiving of the fee.
So clarify for me, sorry, Tony,
No, you're good.
interrupt.
Probably gonna ask the same.
Either they did need an application or they did not need an application.
Well, technically they don't, because it's on private property, they're not asking for any of our services. So I told Crystal, call them back and tell them they don't need to go to council, we can just approve the event. And they said, no, we want to ask for the council to waive the fee, so we want it to go to council.
But they don't have a fee if they don't have an application that they don't need.
They do, so events are $25 unless they come to council for special approval.
Right, but I think
But
we're
I thought it
asking
was
why
on
they even,
Private property.
yeah, it's on private property and they're not requiring our services. What,
They're saying that there could be a large amount of people in, like, there, but since none of us, it doesn't meet a threshold because we don't have a number, so.
And I think, is the fee for staff time not because of our presence at an event?
Typically, yes, but it's
So I'm
also just for us to kind of have some control over what that event looks like, what it entails.
yeah,
At least have knowledge, maybe is a better word than control.
I just feel like we would be approving anything. I just feel like we need to have something on their application about what they're doing, especially if they're planning a large attendance. You know, if they're expecting a large attendance and we know what it's about, you know, we may feel like they need to have police and fire there. I don't know.
Chief Coatney, you did raise your hand. Did you want to talk about something?
I just want to clarify two quick things about this in my experience with Walmart events. They separate police protection and police presence for the event. So their application will often say that they don't need police there for security, but they will then ask us to be there and set up a booth to hand out things and do an appearance and all of that. So when they're filling out the application, they view that as two separate things. They may ask us to come and fill out a tent or hand out things like that, but they're not asking for police protection. The other thing that you guys kind of touched on, which is something that's been mystifying to me, but I just wanted to clarify, the special event application does include private property events in the ordinance. So the ordinance
Yeah.
actually specifies private property events. That's why Walmart fills this out every time they do something. So that's just
If
a
it,
piece of info.
on private property, if it is an impact on city services. So that's where, I'm not sure we have an impact on city services here.
and they haven't made an official request, I assume, we're expecting they'll ask for us to be there, not for protection, but for,
It would not surprise me if they didn't ask us to come and hand out popcorn or something like that. Nothing major, but they're not, what they're not asking for is security.
Yeah.
But you're still gonna have to pay somebody to be present, correct?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Most likely.
Maybe. they'll have to be paid to be there, yes.
Okay.
Whether or not that's an overtime or just a normal duty thing, it just kind of depends on our staff.
Well, even an hour or two, that's gonna be more than $25.
And
But-
they have not, at this point, asked for that. I'm just saying that it's not
Yeah.
uncommon for them to do that.
But regardless of whether it requires our presence on the clock, off the clock, overtime, not, whether we're there or not, the fee is for staff time of processing the application and doing this, right? Not for whatever takes place. And so we're still doing this. So I kind of in light of just not waiving those fees, I don't know, I don't recall waiving these in the past,
I
I
don't
guess.
either.
Yeah.
And I hate to start doing that now where we pick and choose. Let's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
keep it on the,
Yeah, we gotta pay staff
Transparent
time,
level.
we have to pay staff time period,
Right.
regardless of what it's for, in my opinion.
I would assume most people that do these special event applications are for a good cause too, so, if you're doing it for one, you gotta start doing it for all. I think, Dawn, you were kinda touching on that, so that sets a precedent on there.
So,
so we need clarification on what they're doing,
right.
and we're not gonna waive the fee.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. The motion we have in front of it is approve the application with no mention of the fee issue. So, rather than decline it, do we push it
Postpone
out,
it.
right? There you go. I like that one.
My new word. Thanks to Nate.
So, I will make a motion to postpone 8.6 special event application Children's Miracle Network Craft Fair pending a discussion with them about, keeping the fee and getting more details about the event.
Okay.
Any
Do we
additional?
need a date of June 10th would be our next?
Yeah, on June, postponed to the June 10th meeting.
Second?
Motion is second, please vote.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
All right, staff report, city manager report.
Council, I do have a few things to highlight this evening. I'll try to make it quick. Mosquito fogging will begin this week. We should be getting a Facebook post up about that in the next couple of days. So they're gonna be doing that, today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Moving forward, this will take place on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday each week. So they're just trying to get going due to the holiday, that was in this week. The light poles that were removed during the demolition, cleanup at 102 South Madison, those are going back up tomorrow. That's been a little bit of a lengthy wait time, but we've had to coordinate wastewater to do some cleanup of the holes because of some demo debris that made it in, even though they were covered. Community development, electrician, and street department all kind of had to work together. So that is going to take place tomorrow afternoon. From the cemetery, over 1,200 veteran flags were placed. I know some of you mentioned being a part of that, but Brad mentioned over 1,200 flags were placed in the two cemeteries, and we had over 50 volunteers there this time to do so. And he just thought that was fantastic, so we wanted to share that. Then I'll skip to the rec center. You touched on this earlier. The Missouri Public Service Commission has reserved the rec center community space for 2 town hall meetings. One of those will be June 10th. That is the same evening as your regularly scheduled council meeting. But just wanted you to know that that first meeting, June 10th, will be in response to citizen complaints and the investigation that the Missouri Public Service Commission is doing. There will be representatives from the Missouri Public Service Commission there as part of the public hearing. There will also be representatives from Liberty Utilities there, and it's my understanding that they will have a table set up to where citizens can have a conversation directly with a Liberty customer service representative if they need to as well. So the Public Service Commission has kind of given Anthony and I an outline of what that will look like, and they'll be providing their own security from the Missouri State Highway Patrol and taking care of any occupancy requirements and that kind of thing within our facility. So,
It's too bad we don't have the opportunity that we can also go and be a part of that.
Yeah.
If there's any way we can work around that.
I would certainly be open to rescheduling our meeting, before or after, to accommodate that.
Pretty sure it's right at the same time.
yeah, I think it's at 6.
You say there's two meetings, the one in July, is it not over the same thing, or is that what's the one?
It is not. The one in July, so Liberty has requested or has put in their proposal to the Missouri Public Service Commission for a rate increase. And anytime they ask for a rate increase, there is a requirement for a public hearing. So the one in July will actually be for the public hearing, for the rate increase proposal. So this June 10th meeting, is the only one in relation to the complaints and the investigation. There are some other meetings, and we shared that information, the press release from the Public Service Commission, out on the city Facebook page the other day. There will be some other meetings at like Nixa, I think maybe one at Branson, in some other locations. She did indicate that they hope to have a virtual presence as well, so that somebody could attend virtually.
I think it's pretty important that we're able to attend that.
Yeah, well, given this is a tough group to schedule with, we want to try to pick out, hopefully by Tuesday, we'll get an answer of what day we can do so we can notify the public when our meeting is moved to, but maybe figure that out before Tuesday of next week, if we can. Send out the scheduling thing or whatever.
Yep.
Because I don't remember what all meetings are, some of the board meetings are tough to fit in there. So if we can figure that out amongst ourselves by Tuesday, I think that would give us enough time to notify the public, and then, yeah, we can plan on being at that meeting, because I too wanted to go to that and hear what they had to say.
Okay, so Kami can send out the fine time poll like we typically do to try to arrive on a good time, if that works.
Would we all be able to go to that meeting without having the quorum thing going on?
Yeah, so as long as you're not conducting business and making decisions, but we can always post an agenda if you want us to, just so that it's out there that y'all are gonna be there publicly.
Yeah.
That's no issue.
Probably smart, given the topic.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
okay, so we'll work on, looking at a different date. I just wanted to touch on, you guys already have, again, the electronic recycling event on Saturday was a success. I just wanted to say thank you to Mayor Kennedy and Councilwoman Pettit and their spouses for coming and assisting. It was a very cold, chilly, rainy, windy, chasing umbrellas.
Great. It was beautiful.
Wonderful, beautiful morning. But also, I just wanted to say our presiding county commissioner, Bob Sinninger, was also there. Councilwoman Pettit had reached out to him. He came and stood in the rain along with the rest of us and had some really valuable conversations with some citizens, and with myself as well. So I'm looking forward to a future relationship with them, that I think will grow, and learning a lot about how things kind of work on the county level. So that was very good for him to be here. Just wanted to mention, you'll see in the meetings that we have that I've either attended or have upcoming, we are working on a time capsule opening event, and we've put a committee together for that. So we're working toward that and hope to publicize some information about that very soon. I also wanted to say thank you to Shannon for the Chamber of Commerce banquet. It was fabulous as always, and a really good event. The Main Street Branson Summit, I attended that last week on the 21st and 22nd. Myself and Peggy on the ADP board went to that. Fantastic training from Main Street. Felt like a different level of training than we've received so far. And we brought a lot of information back that I think is going to be very beneficial, including some funding options that we hadn't previously seen. So
Great.
I'm excited about that and what that's going to bring us moving forward. One meeting that I skipped getting on here tomorrow afternoon, department heads that are involved with Light the Night are meeting with Shannon. We do an annual meeting with all the parties involved from the different departments to schedule and plan everything that's needed for that. Wanted to let you know we do have that scheduled. I just missed putting it on here. The Regional Transportation Advisory Committee, John was previously appointed to that. It's actually appointed, the county commissioners appoint that. So that seat is one that has just kind of been there. I received an email today. The next meeting is June 9th, and they've asked me to come. So I intend to attend that meeting and kind of see what that looks like from the standpoint of Aurora continuing to have an appointed voice there. So I'll let you know what comes from that.
And I have to tell you, I get consumed with all the meetings you're going to. You're only one human.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm starting to sort through what we can manage a little differently, but I think that one's highly important. So I'm good right now.
Okay.
So, Park Board, I wanted to touch on that. You mentioned it, Mayor Kennedy. So I did have a conversation with Nate. Based on the type of Park Board that we have and the statutory requirements for it, there really is no set number, or since we're not like a park tax and that kind of thing, we have the kind of board that we can kind of set that as we see fit. So there's not really anything that says it's 6 and it should be 6. I agree that it should be an odd number. So for that purpose, I did plan to mention that to you this evening. I hope to bring back a code revision on that, and I was gonna recommend 7. If you like 5 better, just let me know what you'd like us to bring back, and we'll bring that to your next meeting, because I do think we should get that changed.
I could see a day as, because it's a new board, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of new events, and these things are kind of picking up steam, and I think at some point, there's probably a case to be made for 7. But right now, I think they would struggle a few nights getting 4 for quorum, depending on what's going on in town, because a lot of these people do participate in other boards and other groups, and it's just,
Sure.
time is a premium, so
Sure.
it's my opinion on it.
I think 5's a good number, and if we end up with a backlog of applicants, then we can discuss, upping it and taking advantage.
Perfect.
5.
So we'll work on that code revision, and I'll bring it back to your next meeting with a board of 5 members.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Okay. That's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Do not? Any questions, council? All right, with that, I'll make a motion, we move into closed session pursuant to RSMO 610.021 for items 1, 3, and 13.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem Lewis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Oplinger?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pettit?
Yes.
Councilman Blades?
Yep.
You are now in closed session.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Can I take a quick potty break?
Yeah, same for me.